Rocket.
All right, folks, let's get her going. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. My name is Pat Flannery. I'm the editor of Glass Canada and Fenestration Review magazines. I have been very, very kindly invited by Fenestration Canada to moderate a panel on commercial versus residential glazing fenestration industry. It is a topic that I've been embroiled in for many years because when I started with this company, there was only Glass Canada, and we were trying to do both. And I very swiftly realized that having the vinyl/residential side of the industry in the same magazine as the aluminum/commercial side of the industry was not speaking to the same audience. It was not speaking to the same business models. There were a number of differences, and so I created Fenestration Review magazine, which is available, by the way, free to all of you, as well as Glass Canada. And so fast forward to today, Fenestration Canada is making a very strong effort, and I think a very laudable effort, to get the commercial industry more involved in the association. There's been the addition of people like young Rich Pareko right here, Jeffrey Makamoto, who I haven't seen yet. He's around here somewhere. But they've added some assets to the association and are working very, very hard to get our aluminum commercial architectural glass, if you want to call it, side of the industry more involved in the association. And to that end, for the talk, they wanted me to do a talk, and I said, well, you know what? Let's dive into the commercial versus residential topic, and let's dive into the ways that in a lot of respects there's a blurring and there's been an overlap, and some of those things that I saw 10 years ago when I launched Fenestration Review are actually no longer true, and there's more overlap and there's more crossover than there used to be. But to start off, I have a list of topics here, and of course Mike Bruno walks into the thing and immediately derails me and throws me completely off base because he had an excellent suggestion. We need to start off with defining what are we talking about when we're talking about commercial glazing versus residential fenestration. What really are the differences, and what are we getting into? And because Mike brought this up, I'm going to start with it. Oh, first of all, everyone's going to introduce themselves before they start talking. But we're going to start off with Mike on that topic. But first, let's go down the row and introduce everyone. Brett Lucier, Provincial Glass. Short intro of yourself and your company.
Brett Lucier, Provincial Glass.
Lucier. Oh, geez.
I've been called worse today. It's okay. I'm just happy to be here. I'm very excited. Both my kids, I was just talking with Mike, and we both have kids around the same age, and I'm very excited that there's actually people that want to listen to me, because I don't get listened to at home with my two teenagers. So I appreciate the opportunity to come out today and speak on this half. I own a glass company in London that does both residential and commercial, so I feel I can add a little bit to the discussion on that.
Mike, go ahead.
Mike Bruno, president of Everlast Group of Companies, past president of Fenestration Canada. We manufacture windows and doors, both what I would consider commercial or residential, not and residential, but or residential. Across the country, we have locations in Calgary or Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario predominantly. I asked the question because I think there's a blur between it, and I'm really excited about this conversation topic for sure.
Adrian, take us away.
Yeah, hi guys. Adrian Edge. I'm with Innotech Windows and Doors. I manage their multifamily division. So we have a bit of a range as far as, actually we do both single family all the way up to, our biggest was 25 stories. So it's a fun conversation for us that we've been at it at Innotech for the last 15, 20 years, putting it into some of the high-rise applications. I think one of the interesting contrasts is what we see in the US side versus how we're transitioning on the Canadian side. What we see, at least in the US side, to just bridge right into the conversation, punch windows are punch windows. If it's 40 stories, if you're meeting the performance grade, frankly, who cares?
I agree.
It's the same conversation.
I mean, to me was, when I talk about glazing, from a young kid, it was the glass. Well, there's low-E coatings in a commercial aspect. There's low-E coatings that are used on a residential aspect. Materials, aluminum. I agree 100%, and I think that blur, other than to me, commercial application would be more like a commercial entrance door that has a self-closer on it, an automatic opener. That's commercial. But from a perspective of doing a window wall in any type of material, I don't care. The material is irrelevant to me. Commercial building would be, I don't know, is it that there's a storefront or a retail location that makes it commercial?
But frankly, even for sorry,
I was going to say, I think it really depends. I think the only thing that I see a problem with is the installers would disagree. So there are installers that consider themselves commercial and those that consider themselves residential. What differentiates them is usually their ego. So it's usually what I normally
Not
see.
the tools that they use?
Not necessarily.
They don't have a
tools they use.
special drill, right?
No.
Okay.
no, but their automatic caulking guns rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the blur, and I think we've spoken about this in the past where I've actually had a fundamental issue with how the building code perceives under Part 9, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken, about residential site built windows over windows built in a facility, what the differences are between them. And it's, from what I've learned, is that if you site build a window in a residential application, it doesn't have to be tested within a facility, but it can have an engineer report on it. Real big disadvantage for a company that actually produces a product that's NAF certified or Energy Star certified and has, certification, verification, and I think now a third verification's coming underneath the Energy Star program. Yeah. And to your point on the commercial side, I mean, I don't know, residential people glaze windows the exact same way commercial people glaze windows, right? And size was the determining factor previously, but today, I mean, we build 8-foot by 8-foot triple glazed window in residential homes all day long.
Yeah, so I was going to speak to your point even about storefront is, in BC with some of the energy performance stuff, we got into storefront. We do it for our build. So at that point, what matters in that context? And on the
I think the
installer
difference is the glass. I think nowadays is really what makes the difference that gives you the performance. Because if you're using a thermally broken aluminum system, it's probably going to meet most codes, whether it's storefront, whether it's window material, whether it's curtain wall. Some of the advantages with aluminum are probably going with thicker glass that some of the vinyls now can handle that where before they couldn't.
Yeah, but Innotech is tilt and turn, so it's a little bit of a different deal where that's never been an issue for us.
Everlast is aluminum Energy Star rated window, never been an issue either. 6 mil, triple glazed, not an issue. I think where we can speak about the glasses, maybe you have to go to a higher performance low E coating because the frame isn't as energy efficient. That's probably it. But with respect to size, I think regardless of what the material is today, from a frame perspective, wood, fiberglass, vinyl, aluminum, or any other kind of mixture, I think glass isn't the thing. I think it's just, it's kind of so my father is 78 years old, been in the business for 62 years, and it's a little bit of that inherited thing that we need to change, and why Fenestration Canada thought that commercial aspect of bringing it into the association was so important, because there is no differentiator anymore. I can tell you that on our installs, and I'm sure you as well, you're using swing stage and booms and lifts to put in glass.
It's all the same. Hydro lifts and
absolutely.
You're doing the same thing?
Absolutely true.
Yeah. The only thing that I would say right now that I see on the platform as far as being different, I'm going to put big quotation marks, window wall and bypasses.
Yeah.
I mean, and the truth is like we work in a punched opening kind of world. As soon as you hit bypasses, that is its own conversation. But even that, I think that line's getting blurred by a couple different companies. Like Cascadia over in BC, they've got a transition between their fiberglass process.
So we do as well on our punch out. We've got a transition piece. We're actually doing a project right now where we're actually transitioning a spandrel panel in between two bypass windows. That to me is non-existent anymore on that end. But I got to tell you, talking about the bypass windows, or what I would call a unitized system, it's complete, floor to 90 stories. I'm going to hate when they have to replace seal units or have a water issue on that. What is a bypass window?
Let's make sure the microphone is circulating around for anybody who wants to ask questions. Okay, thanks, Dave.
Oh, Dave.
Okay,
How are you, sir?
Yeah. Just hand up for the microphone if you want to
Yeah.
say, if you want to ask questions at any point.
Raymond Roy with Guardian. What's a bypass window? I've never heard that term before.
So you got the bypass slab so you've got your concrete slab. Anything that goes below that slab or into that slab is a bypass essentially.
So it would be on the front face of the slab rather than installed on top of the slab.
It's
And in
a
between,
spandrel
correct?
section.
It's a spandrel section.
Spandrel section.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, in saying that, I think we're gonna, I hope not, but I'd hate to be in the glass replacement business or IG replacement business in 20 years. To all the IG manufacturers, I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any way. I think you've improved, the sealants and all that, but when there is going to be a issue or a water leakage, it's really hard to isolate where that leakage is coming from. And I think from a replacement standpoint and a condo corp standpoint, when it's another term is unitized system, I think they're going to actually literally have to hoard off the inside of a house, remove the whole facade. I think condo corporations are going to have a real big challenge financially replacing these. We're quite in Southern Ontario. We do a lot of replacement of rental units at a punch out. We can isolate the window, isolate the unit, and do that. I don't want to be in that replacement business 20 to 30 years from now.
No. And a lot
I
of
mean,
the
I'll
stuff,
be old, so.
a lot of the stuff that we've been working through, I'd say, for the last 2-3 years on, call it high rise in Vancouver, we essentially have custom brake shapes transitions. And then the openings are dealt with like a punched opening. And exactly. And that in the future, I think, is pretty robust. I can replace the glass from the inside.
Yeah.
If you need to deal with any of the transitions, just deal with it just like you do anything else.
I agree.
Yeah, so you do your transitions with aluminum rather than with glass.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you installed windows in BC the way we install them in Ontario, yeah. I mean, I know you and I spoke about a project you were doing in Hamilton,
yeah.
right? It's just a different mindset. I mean, I've learned a lot myself going out to Western Canada on how things need to be done. To those Ontario manufacturers, like, get ready, it's coming, and you better be ready, because I'm telling you, you can attest to this, mislabel a window installed, it's coming out of the opening and going back to the facility. Right, Terry? Right?
Yeah, so
They've lived it.
For those that don't know in the room, City of Vancouver was really nice, and they had a project where it was mislabeled, so NAFS and NFRC certification, and they pulled out the windows once on a build, and it never happened again. The builders knew very clearly if they were to do it wrong, the entire project was at risk.
Brett, I want to ask you a question, because you're in the commercial side, and I know we do some business together. But like on a custom home that's got, window wall windows, floor to ceiling, 10 foot high, you'd put in a curtain wall system.
Most likely.
Most likely.
Depends on wind loads. But yeah.
Correct. Exactly. Now, what type of engineering would you need? What would you provide, or what would the builder, the contractor, ask you for to ensure that it met the SB12 or what the energy requirements are?
It really depends on the permit process. It really depends on the homeowner, whether they're getting permits, assuming that they are, as they're supposed to. And then it depends on the city and the municipality that you're in. So I know in London we have a very strict council that likes to dictate everything and likes to over-engineer everything. So majority of those type of projects require engineer stamp.
From a residential standpoint? We're not
Yeah,
talking
residential, commercial,
Okay,
they treat it the same actually.
Okay.
They'll treat it under Section 9, obviously because it's residential, and it'll meet SB 12, not SB 10. It's the same type of thing, and we'll still deal with the local engineer, which most engineers are going to go directly to curtain wall. That's kind of where their comfort zone is, rather than any kind of window wall or it's just that's where most of the calculations come from, and they have the charts ready to go. So for them.
I have a question. Your system would be a system like you buy it prefab from a supplier, or do you fab some of your own?
Either. So it can be done either. That's one of the nice things about a lot of the flush glaze systems, and they come in stock lengths. They're optimized, they're cut, they're fabricated. Whether we're doing it or we have a fabricator do it or manufacturer do it, are all options that could be done.
So that's my issue right there. You know, we need to make sure that our facilities are getting audited, being done properly. Commercial fabricator is actually buying sticks, cutting it. Some are actually I've seen it. Some are actually cutting it on site. Some are actually drilling their holes on site, and their pressure plates are having just a 5/16 drill bit going
Nothing
through
I
it.
do, Mike.
I get it.
Nothing I
I get
do.
it. No, I'm not saying
Present company
You know,
accepted.
present company excluded, but you know, to the point where I have the challenges, and I know that you know, Jeff and Terry and Robert have heard about my kind of my frustration with it is that it's not the same playing field, although it's going into the same house. So is it commercial or is it residential? To me, I'm putting a window with a frame into a place that's being used.
Well, you're talking
Right.
about regulations, and I'm kind of the same thing. Like, there's nothing to differentiate installers. So there's no government body that says that, you know, to be a window installer, you need this qualifications. Literally, I can start tomorrow at a company, and I'm a window installer. Nobody's telling me I'm not. There's nothing, no license I need, no nothing. So, you know, whether you're on a commercial site, obviously there are things, you know, fall arrest and all the other stuff you need, but there's nothing that says that I'm required to be a window installer. There's no legislation on that. So
Those requirements for fall arrest, tie off, and using equipment are on the residential side as well too.
They are.
So it's
Yeah,
not
they are.
it's not exclusive. It's just this blur, right? What we're trying to do is get rid of the blur. And we're gonna go to Roy one more time. Roy, thanks.
So doesn't it have to do with usage, though? I mean, occupancy. I mean, we're talking about commercial, residential.
I've never.
I mean, you're talking
no.
about the system is one thing,
Yeah.
but if you're talking about the actual usage of the,
I can
of the
speak
product.
to that. The performance grade, if you get into CW ratings, is operation, and you have to meet a certain amount of operations for the windows and doors. I think that's kind of what you're talking to, and then AW has cycle testing, and then
nobody's there, right?
well, but actually the commercial oftentimes is getting either AW or CW.
Correct.
ratings.
It's actually got more stringent
Right.
requirements, and even though no one's there, it's a larger footprint. They still have air conditioning going at night. They have heating going at night. I don't know about you, but I drive around buildings at night that have beautiful, you know, gray reflective or bronze reflective glass, and they've got the lights on, and you can see right into the building. And from a usage standpoint, I'm not an engineer, and I mean, I have nothing to back this up other than, but like, you know, you've got these 30-story commercial buildings that have, real estate companies or banks in it. There's more people using that stuff and creating more stuff than any residential home would ever have. So to me, I mean, I think it's as foolish as like, we have 100 people at our facility and the government won't give us or the city won't give us a blue bin to do recycling, right? I can throw it into a regular garbage bin. But at my home where we're 4 people, you know, if I have a piece of plastic in my recycling bag, I get a white label made out of paper that says, we're not taking your recycling. Like, give me a break. You know what I
label
mean?
to
of
London.
shame, yes.
Yeah.
We've all got
Yeah.
the label of shame,
Yeah.
yes.
You know, like, but, to that point, I mean, I know we still haven't gone to the other topics, but, I
Are
think.
you kidding? You guys are the best panel I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So one thing, and I haven't had to say another word.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So with respect to the installers, I would genuinely agree that there's a mentality standpoint that one's commercial, one's residential. But I can tell you, talking to my installers that are lifting and have forklifts picking up like 6 mil on 6 mil on 6 mil, 8x8 triple glazed glass, they don't care what they're classified. They just want to get paid appropriately. How's that for an answer?
Yeah, no, and I said it to Pat right before we got started that for me, it's a cultural difference more than anything else. So commercial in BC, and I don't know how to speak to it for the rest of the country, and I'd be curious on some input on this, but in BC, it was expected that you're supplying and installing your product. That's their management of their quality. That was set up by Toro and Starline, and they ran that gambit. I think they just kind of hit it, and the install was critical. They didn't take a lack of quality as an option. That is one thing in, call it the low-rise setting, that never really happened.
So
And I think, but it has changed.
It's
like
changing.
with performance, with all these little pinholes in the products and wood frame buildings, that has shifted. There's so many companies, including ourselves, that now own the install. It is ours and has to be. There's no way for us to manage the quality control.
Correct. We have in Toronto, we have product lines that we will not sell as just a supply only.
Same.
It must be supply and install, or we will not sell it. It's not even about warranty, because I don't feel, I speak to a lot of people in Southern Ontario, and they're like, well, I make whatever they want, and it's their problem where it goes. I'm like, no, it's not their problem where it goes. And Dave, we can laugh about this, and everyone here. No, you're producing the product that shouldn't be produced that way. You're the expert. Yeah. You're considered, well, but I don't know where it goes. And it's like, you know what? No, I want to own it. I want to own the whole process, because I can control it, can control the message, can control the install. And you know what? I can take ownership of it. And one thing for those that don't know me is I'm okay with taking ownership of something that's gone bad. That's what makes our company and our group what we are. We're rooted in family values. So if it means that I'm not going to sell to you because you refuse to use my crews, I'm not selling to you.
We have commercial aluminum suppliers, and then that's all they want to deal with, where they will not warranty their product if it is used in a residential application. One for sure is Connier. They've come straight out and said, if you put a commercial aluminum window or door in this house, there's no warranty. They come straight out about it. So they've made it very clear that their product is to be used for commercial applications, not residential applications. So there are suppliers out there that have set that line and said, you're not doing it with our product. And good for them that that's not what they want to do, and they don't want their product in a residential environment. Whereas I think, as you guys are both saying with your products, they can be used in a residential or commercial. But I mean, I think it's more or less the punch window openings more than anything else.
Well, but what's even a punched window
What is a
opening?
punched
Like
window
I got a 10-foot by 10-foot configuration
Right.
I can put into that opening. At what point is that a curtain wall?
Yes.
What's the logic behind them not wanting their product in a residential? It's got to be the lose control over it, or
Yeah, I can't. I'm not 100% sure why. They've just been very clear.
Yeah,
Anytime we've asked about it or tried to do it, because we've had products where they've wanted literally curtain wall windows just for the sheer size and performance. Is they want a curtain wall windows put into their residential house.
Yeah.
So we've done that.
look at Vancouver.
I have
There's
Yes.
a curtain wall in residential everywhere around
Everywhere.
Vancouver.
Yeah, the question was, what's a punch window, to your point, right? Like, so punch window for you would be over what size? Like, or what would you consider that a certain portion of the wall is made up of something other than a window?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, if I go floor to ceiling and wall to wall, it's in a punched
Yeah,
open.
I guess it really
Correct.
comes down to wind loads and what your systems can perform to, right? So if you guys
Exactly.
can do certain heights without having to have steel reinforcing or any kind of
CWAW takes care of that. That's why there's no more distinguishment, that's why my question was, what's the difference? I don't see a difference anymore.
If I'm able to get a PG50, CW50 out of this, what do I care?
Right.
Like it's whatever the architect specs on that.
From an energy performance, it's probably the residential product that meets those requirements is probably performing better than a commercial grade. Thermally.
Yeah.
I'm talking thermally.
Yeah.
Right? Because we
Yes.
can build the structure into any material. We have members within Fenestration Canada that are doing, what we would say in Ontario. Oh, you can't do a 20-story building in PVC. Well, absolutely you can.
Yes, you can.
I've seen it being done, right? And I see it performing better thermally.
Now, do you see
Then-
that going
then-
back to the municipalities though? Because I know that that certain municipalities have made it clear that they don't want vinyl windows over
It's-
4 stories,
it's-
6 stories.
And that used to be the case,
Yeah.
but the NBC and Provincial code has shifted. The whole combustible window conversation
It's gone.
is gone.
Gone.
And so now what we've got is, man, we're so grateful that we can now put these vinyl windows that met the performance criteria. The only pushback I see is architects with designs that go, oh, well, now I've got to tweak this thing and put an HSS in the middle between these two units.
And the one thing that I think we're going to see with the transition of now the vinyl coming into the market and going into high rise, and we're starting to see it, and we had some discussions yesterday. I'll talk about Ontario itself, but I've seen a growing concern over painted PVC product. I'm not too sure how fiberglass would come under that as well, because that's a painted product as well too. But I think what we're going to see is we're going to start seeing a hybrid version of windows in the future to meet the thermal performance, to meet the structural. There's going to be a change. What that change is going to be, some of it will be code driven, some of it will be performance driven. But I think some of it is going to be just failure on the market, because not every PVC window or fiberglass window or aluminum window is built the same.
No.
Right?
So, a good example for us, and actually these guys, Continental, we use their foil. That's a very different conversation than a painted product or a co-extruded product.
Yeah.
That there are ways to manage that conversation in a way that's constructive.
Yeah.
But it requires adaptation, frankly.
100%.
Yeah. If you're going to work in that market, you need to be thinking about how your product's going to operate at 20 stories.
So, to your point, because you're used to the high-rise aluminum, doing a lot of service work there, and I know I love you because I sell a lot of components to you.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we still build a window that was built pre-1960, single glazed. We still produce that window, and it still gets installed in buildings. So when we talk about government pushing for, energy performance and all that, there's a lot more older buildings than new buildings in the market. And if you replace as existing, you don't have those requirements that are, building code requirements. But, this green initiative is really, how do I say it without getting myself in trouble? But
You've never been politically correct. Why are you starting now?
I'm trying to. Anyways, this is being streamlined or
I
something.
didn't think he did.
This is new.
It's new. This is a new thing.
So I think this green push is really. Okay, I'll put it this way. I saw last week on Instagram a diesel generator generating electricity for 2 electric charging. So that's how I feel about it. How's that?
Yeah.
Something I saw online, not anything I created.
It's an immature market.
Immature market.
So Mike's not going to be hugging any trees anytime soon.
Well, let me focus that point for you, and you guys can all get in on this. All the struggles, everything we've been doing, every conversation at this association, every conversation at FGIA, and all the other technical things has been about improving energy efficiency, keeping the buildings from using so much energy for heating and cooling. Right? This has been our solitary focus as a scientific, technical prospect for the last 20 years, at least in this industry. It's all everyone's R&D has been doing. It's all the testing has been focused on. Fantastic. We all get the need. But the objective is to prevent climate change. Correct? CO2 emissions. Right? Well, I was at an architect conference earlier this year, and I can assure you that the only thing anybody cares about now is embodied carbon, because it is the total package of how much carbon you have emitted, not just in operating the building, but in creating the products and installing and doing everything else. It's the whole amount of carbon that you have emitted in order to make that window and put it in and go it through its whole lifestyle. Embodied carbon calculations and measurements, in many respects, run counter to and are in tension with what you want to do to reduce the operational carbon that the building produces. If you put triples in, you are using more glass, you are using more framing material, everything is heavier, etc., 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 etc. It's in tension. There's a guy back there, Claudio, our engineer columnist, who has written some very good things on this in Glass Canada magazine. Guys, to that point, how is this new coming thing of embodied carbon that may force us to crumple up all of our designs and all of our thrust for the last little while and throw it out in terms of a completely new direction? How's that going to affect commercial, and how's that going to affect residential?
Let me jump into that.
Yeah, here comes Adrian. He's from BC, and he loves this shit.
Well, all right. I'm going to start by questioning your premise, which is that the two have to be mutually exclusive. Okay. I disagree fundamentally. So at the end of the day, both operational and full life is going to be contingent on how long that product can be used. If we have to replace these products within 5, 10, 20 years, you're right. This isn't going to work. But that, at the end of the day, I think is the real conversation. It has to be regenerative. Whatever we do to these buildings, we have to be able to make the incremental changes so that we're not full scale replacing it. The things I see in BC as far as full building envelope replacement is unacceptable. We can't have a conversation about embodied carbon if we are stripping the building back to its base layers and rebuilding, replacing all the windows, all the doors, all of it go to the landfill.
What do you do
on.
with
Hold
a
on.
seal?
Now, I agree with that. So we're working on a building right now that has steel studding with interior pink insulation, I'll just layman's term, 4-inch spray foam on the outside, which I think comes from some sort of chemical or oil or something
I
like that.
believe
so.
there's a chemical process.
There's a
involved.
chemical process to that, right? So now we're putting this on the exterior of a building, then we're doing another exterior sheeting, and from a carbon footprint of getting that building to perform where we want it to perform. Now back to your point, the life expectancy of it, any condo corp still has like a 35 to 50 year, I don't care what type of product it is, full exterior facade replacement. We're never going to get 50 years out of triple glazed windows. Not going to happen.
No, and I don't want that either. From an installer standpoint, I think we should, the quicker the better. I mean, the more we can change this, the better. No, I think.
But I think you're absolutely right. We have come to this weird nth degree of the windows that we need to figure out how to backtrack a little bit on. Frankly, what I see in BC is if we were to focus on air tightness better with these buildings, start with application. It kind of goes back to your installer conversation, in my view, is that the low-hanging fruits are get the air barrier right and install the windows and doors correctly.
Absolutely.
If we could nail those 2 points, the idea about our progress in embodied carbon, I think it goes up exponentially.
No matter what
Then we
you
can
do,
talk
I think
about
the
all
biggest
the-
part of heat loss or any of that is always going to be your windows.
Yeah.
That's always going to be the windows because the walls and everything they're doing all the insulation and everything you talked about. They're so much better. Your biggest heat loss is always going to be through your windows. So
And we
improving
don't-
the windows obviously is going to help.
But we don't even have a
I have
install
a question,
side
a
value.
comment to Pat.
Sorry.
About the embodied carbon and architects, that comment, I think that's in somewhat can be taken as aspirational as well. That's the hot topic they want to talk about. I think also Tom Culp did a piece on return on investment for embodied carbon for that extra light of glass that I think was within 7 years.
Yeah, he wouldn't send me that article. I tried to get it out of him.
I think he did it. I think he did it on his own. I mean, to where, but either way, that's to address the. But then the other part is architects. And Helen Saunders, she addressed this a few years ago at GlassCon. Is that the adoption? They can have all these aspirational goals and everything else, and sure, architects are visionaries, right? They look to the future, but actually, how much of all this stuff that they're talking about is being adopted and implemented too, right?
The stated goal of the Canadian government is
2030.
that's right, Terry. 2030
National Building Code
embodied
2030 is going to have an embodied carbon component.
For
to
sure.
it.
So what we're going to do is we're going to cut down trees to build windows, process them, paint them with water-based, which we're running out of water. Then we're going to maintain them every 3 years, right? Then we're going to take them out because Brett needs work in 5 years from now, and they're rotting out.
I'm going to drink my
And
water
we're
right
going
now
to
'cause we're running out of water.
take them and we're going to throw them into landfill or maybe burn it. And we've had some podcasts on this stuff. I really feel that, but hold on, but they're going to do that, but then make it affordable housing, right? So we're going to do all that. We're going to make it affordable housing, and we're going to put 65,000 people in Toronto, 65,000 homes in 6 years. That's what we're going to do. We just announced, Freeland just announced $1.2 billion. We've been building a light rail transit here in Ontario, 7 kilometers for the last 14 years. but we're going to build 65,000 affordable housing that are going to be carbon neutral.
Oh, Mike, I love
What
you.
what I think?
Don't
What I,
worry, Rich. You'll be able to take the bus
So-
up Eglinton. in like
so,
7 years.
Prime Minister Bruno, it'll be 2x4 R12 walls, single glazed aluminum sliding
Single glazed
windows,
aluminum Everlast windows
And an-
everything.
and an oil
That's-
furnace.
That's the future.
and we'll be good.
I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is like, I think what it's going to do for manufacturers in Canada. I think I hope our manufacturers in our association and those that aren't members, I hope they can really see what's going on and how it's going to transition for how we are doing things today to how we need to do them in 5 years from now. I mean, I've sat in some meetings where, you know, in my younger days when I'd say, how about if we did nothing? And Jeff Baker and Robert would turn around and say, it doesn't work that way, right? And you know, it's different. But I think we have a lot of educating to do on the manufacturers on what the next, I guess, cycle of our window and door industry is.
Yeah.
And if I had to, you know, sitting at the board meeting yesterday, I can tell you that there's some good people sitting at that table that are looking out for the best of the interest of the industry. But there's not enough fabricators seeing how critical this is.
I think that's a big part of it. I think you mentioned the education part of it. I think that's a huge part, not just for the government, but also for architects that are going to be making these decisions that are dictated by the government. And we all know that, you know, the government is so great at having that big picture. And I think it's important that they get told and see the small little things and changes that can be affected. And I think that's not being done. I think that needs to be done. We're trying. We're trying. The education part of it is a huge part of it.
I'll let this. You know, we have some good soldiers within our group, and Adrian's one of them.
What are you seeing in these conversations, Adrian, at the government level?
You know-
BC is one thing, and then there's the whole rest.
I've had this conversation a few times today and yesterday. We've been very involved with the provincial governments in BC and looking at code changes and how we're going to kind of manage our next few steps. And what I see is both very encouraging and concerning. So the opportunity at the moment in the government side is pretty similar to
Politically correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done. Yeah.
So what I see is similar to what I think we see in our businesses is we have a lot of talent that has exited the market. That we had people that were excellent at what they did. They were 20, 30, 40 years into the industry, and during COVID they went, all right, that's enough. And they walked away. And then we had a lot of growth, a lot of new people, and a lot of need for education. That didn't just happen at our level, that happened at government level too. And so what we're seeing there is a bunch of people that frankly don't know what they're doing.
Oh my God.
It is painful to have conversations with some of these people, but at the same time, that's an opportunity. We have the opportunity to have a real voice at the table and make some changes because the environment is much more flexible than it used to be.
And I'll agree with that. The unfortunate part is we're talking to, you know, you say we're doing it. We're talking to someone for 6 months on education. Next thing you know, they're gone or they've moved position or they're no longer there. And now you have to go in. I mean, wasn't there a roadmap that like was supposed to go somewhere and then all of a sudden it's gone and then someone new comes in and says, oh, well, there's a roadmap. There's a roadmap. I think the old came back. Oh, yeah, no, the roadmap's there. And then you go back and like, no, there's no more roadmap. So to that point, like, that's the frustrating part. A lot of people think, what do we do? And what do all the volunteers do? And I got to tell you, I have the utmost respect for our volunteers within our group. And the amount of time and effort that they put into the association, not self-serving, get some rewards out of it. You're kind of a little bit ahead of the path of what's going on. But I got to tell anyone who isn't here, they do so much work, and I'm not going to say it's me because it's not me. They do so much work. It's thankless, and to your point, it is so difficult because you talk to the person, you think you have a good path, course of action, and then next thing you know, 3 months down the road, there's a completely different team in front of you, and you're back to square one.
Are you talking with government or are you talking with
Government.
architects?
Okay, he's talking about government.
I'm talking government.
The supposed experts in the government, Brett. We get NRCan people, and sometimes they come and talk to you about what they want to do, and your eyes are kind of bulging. It's like, have you heard of any of this stuff before?
Yeah, so, and I think some of what we've done, again, just on the BC side, so I chair the Pacific chapter there, and I have for the last couple of years. About to hand it off to Kyle here next year, so you'll do great. You know, what I've seen for the last couple of years is it's a lot about how we document this process and what deliverables we kind of hold at the front end. So a lot of our, essentially, like, we're expecting the government to write the roadmap, and we need to tell them what the roadmap is. Write it, document it, show it. That essentially winds up becoming our responsibility, which I know collectively in this room we probably go, man, why do we have a government then? But it's it's our job right now. More than anything else, we want to see that change. We essentially have to spearhead it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, they need us, and I think they know they need us. It's just how much listening you get sometimes. So bring it back to the commercial residential thing. Where do you guys see these? But give me your picture. I'm going to go down the row. Give me your picture of that 2030 and out to 2050 time frame. How are these environmental changes that we're seeing going to change what we're doing on both sides of that down the road? Where do you see the big changes coming? Adrian?
I want to be last, so go ahead and go to the other side.
Okay, Brett gets to start.
Well, I think the good news is nothing's going to happen fast. If the government's involved, I think we got more than 20 years. As you said, it takes a while to even to build a train. From my standpoint, I don't see a lot of changes. I think the major thing I see is getting educated to architects. One of the things I see most dealing with architects and drawings right now is they're still using the same specs from 20 years ago. So you're not seeing these new performance requirements other than maybe a small addendum afterwards. Make it SB10, make it SB12, whatever it is. That they're still using the same drawings, still same details, still same. That's how they save money. That's how the architects make money with their drafters. So getting the education to the architects to make these decisions and changes in their specifications is going to make more changes than I think anything else. Because if once you get a product spec and it's in there, the chance of the likelihood of using it is a lot better.
So
Single glazed aluminum, Mike?
No,
Is that the wave of the future?
No, mine's going to be more of how we build. So it's not even about regulations. Part of it will be regulations, but I think how we build multi-res. I think the future is multi-res. I strongly believe the future is all rental. I don't think the generation coming up are going to be able to afford to buy a home. Do they want home ownership? We live in a society where it's what do I get now, right? Not wait and go. They don't like to cut grass or clean snow or anything like that. But I think the way construction is going to develop, and in order to get the embodied carbon footprint, and it's going to have to be done in a controlled environment. I actually believe there's going to be less windows and doors in a home, and I consider a home one door that has a family living in there. And when you go stack, you're gonna, we're seeing it in stacked townhouses, we're seeing it in multi-condos, and I think the construction is going to change. In order to make sure that we build cost effectively, which is important, it's going to have to be in a controlled environment, replicating the same thing over and over and over again, because that's what's made us efficient in manufacturing. That's what's kept our costs down in manufacturing, is how do we get great at producing things. And I think with the cost of inflation, there was a discussion last night about it, that the bonds went down in the U.S. Everyone thinks inflation went down in the U.S. They think the same trend's going to happen in Canada. They forgot one thing. Our dollar's gone down by like 4 cents since that happened. So we're not going to see a decrease in inflation in Canada. And I think we need to start becoming more efficient. So I don't think it's going to be driven. I think there's going to be a want. The green thing right now is the want that everyone wants. But more importantly, I mean, I was in downtown London near your office. Yeah, I was shocked at how many people, 5 years ago, I never saw that many people living on the street. And I'm not trying to pick on London, but it's just a place where everyone had a home.
Especially Brett's area.
Yeah, exactly. I made the wrong right, and it's like I told my son, don't go that way. Anyways, but I think putting people in homes is going to become more important than carbon, in my opinion. Putting a roof over someone's head is going to become more important. That's my style.
So, coming from BC perspective,
Always.
because this is
Well, the future is now in BC.
He's so left, you know. He's so
it's-
left.
It's going to be a rub, in my opinion. I think we're going to find ourselves between a rock and a hard place where we have government incentives and rebates and want. Like we see it in BC, we're getting hammered on that stuff.
Yeah, you're getting like a $9,500 replacement rebate in BC. It's
so
crazy.
What we're getting as far as support and the push in order to go in that direction is pretty aggressive. I think in order to meet these 2030 targets, I don't see the national government letting up on that. But I do see the provinces pushing back. And I think we're going to find ourselves between this rock and a hard place between we have to have the amount of buildings, but we're going to have to meet the Paris Accord.
Well,
And this rub is going to be a lot of friction. And I honestly, like I'm kind of speaking to, I think we're in a place where we could shape some of that direction. We can be pretty vocal about it. We can help governments move in a direction that we see as helpful.
Do you think it will though? Since 1980, the government has not hit a single target.
Correct.
And not by just 1 or 2 points.
yeah, I was going to say.
No, let me be clear.
Yeah.
They will not hit the target.
So-
Not even
but
close.
they will continue to put pressure on it. And
Well-
we will see change because of that.
Well, it depends.
And
It
we
depends.
have.
It depends what government is in power. I think that makes an effect in it.
Some are more accountable than others.
So yeah, if the polls look the way the surveys are showing right now, I think the Liberals will be out of power in a couple of years. I think the new government that comes in is going to have a little bit of a different approach to it, and I think that as a manufacturing industry in Canada, we're on the verge of actually all being put out of business, like completely.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to deal with import products that don't have the same, like who's
Yeah,
policing
gotta
it,
make that
right? Like
change.
who's policing it? I mean, at the AGM, I was asking if I could test my windows to European value or European code, because that gives a better rating than than NAFS. And I've yet to have anyone say that I can't get them tested, and I've put people to task on that, and no one's policing it. So what's going to happen is, and we see here at our show now, I see more people that do windows that are not from North America at our show today, which is great because I think our team at Fenken's done a great job expanding it. But there are competition. Do they have the same regulations? Who's policing it? Who's monitoring it? And the answer to that, truthfully, is no. So manufacturers are
Except
going
in
to be
BC.
except in BC, correct?
Vancouver, not even all of BC, just Vancouver.
Just Vancouver, okay. But to your point,
But
do
window
you
regiment,
build
like
do you build a
residential
window just for Vancouver? No.
No.
So you're trying to compete in a market that is greater than just Vancouver, and of course for productivity you want to be consistent in what you do, and you pride yourself on good windows. So I know you're going to produce a good window, but it just doesn't allow you to be competitive in the market, and we'll be out of business. And that's what's going to happen. I have as Brett said, I have an 18 and 17-year-old. I've told my kids, as hard as it was for my father, they'll never be in this industry. Because I don't think, not because they're not capable or I can't teach them the work ethic, I just don't feel that I am strong enough to stay in this industry. Because I don't think financially we'll be able to, honestly.
Geez, that's getting dark. Okay, so we're gonna.
Transition.
So for those who are interested in staying and surviving in the industry, I wanted to get to my business model question because I like this question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're going to go down the row, and everyone is going to tell us whether they would rather do. And this goes to the commercial residential thing and how you should position your business and what you might look at in the future. Would you rather do one big hospital project or 1,000 residential window retrofits? Brett, what does Provincial want?
1,000 windows.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really?
100%.
And why?
Well, They say to have $1 million.
Get on the
job,
mic a little bit.
They say to have $1 million job, you have to have $1 million in the bank. Any big commercial project is going to, until you get to the point where you actually make any profit on that job, when you get that 10% holdback, it could be a year, it could be a year and a half. You're carrying all the labor, all the materials, and then you get small little draws along the way. You don't make any. You make money eventually. Looks great revenue wise, but at the cost per dollar, you make more. Turn and burn. Get in there, do a quick little window job. 1,000 little windows. We just did in London there, 6-story little building, 300 windows. We did it within a couple months. Turn and burn. We've already got our money. If that was a commercial project, we wouldn't see our money until next year, middle of next year. So I'd rather turn and burn and do 1,000 windows in one big hospital project. Looks great in pictures if you got a whole wall of windows that you did, but I'd rather do a bunch of little jobs, get in, get out.
Mike?
Neither.
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 What? He's not.
No job?
Oh yeah, that's right. He's the guy that wants out of the business. Yeah.
No, so to the point where the holdbacks and all that stuff. So, we run a different business model, and I particularly don't care what case law is and that mandatory 10% holdback and everything. I'll do 1,000. I'll do a hospital job, but it's all going to be on my terms and conditions. There's going to be a deposit. There's going to be a progress draw, and there's going to be no holdback. That's the way Everlast runs. That's the way we operate across the country. You decide how you want to run your business. No contractor, no GC, and no, I guess, provincial law is going to tell you how it's done. Because if two people agree that there's no holdback on it, then there's no holdback. I've sat in front of a builder, and we're doing a project right now. It's got it's 250 doors, and I mean units, stacked townhouses, and there's 1,800 windows, and it's a deposit per release. It's payment within 30 days, and it's no holdback. And that's the type of business that we do. And Brett, when I say that's the type of business I do, it's 100%. And when we do a custom, just to let you know, we are deposit and we are balanced before we go and install. And people say to me, well, that's not acceptable. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with your $300,000 in windows that are designed for your house? And I've had one person say to me, what do you think, you're Home Depot? I said, no, I'm not Home Depot. But if I was, they'd ask you to do the same thing, which is prepay for the whole order before we custom produce it for you and then wait to get it delivered. And that's our model. So we like all of them, but under our terms and conditions.
Absolutely. Common theme I've seen on the commercial side. The contractors, someone's going to throw something at me, are terrible at determining their own, at negotiating, and they're terrified of their customers and negotiating their own terms and conditions and getting things so that it actually is fair for them. The dog is wagging the tail, as maybe it should, but I think there could be more going the other direction. It would change that calculation. Adrian, one big hospital or 1,000 window replacements?
I don't think Mike and I's answer is going to be very different, frankly. I'll just start mine with, it depends. If I've got 1,000 stratas to deal with in Vancouver, I'd take a whole lot of terrible before ever touching that crap. I'd take an awful hospital run by way too many government facilities before I would touch 1,000 stratas.
Okay.
I mean, it really just depends on who you're working with and what your agreement is. There's a lot of ways to cut the pie, and I think that's actually something that should be encouraging moving forward. It's our job to set the playing field, and we do every time. I sit there with my contract, and we redline the living tar out of it.
Oh.
We have an appendix I add to every contract that states my terms.
Yeah.
So it is I think a critical thing to take your contracts really seriously. I can't tell you how many people just say, yep, I guess I'm going to have to sign this and deal with the consequences.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see, and I know we have Mr. Mendicola has a question in 1 second, but I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a lot of companies that bought into those contracts are going to realize in the next 6 to 18 months how bad those contracts were, because we're seeing a lot of condo developments actually already out of the ground, being shut down, and lawsuits happening. And there's a lot of people tied into projects that they signed in 2019 and 2020 that no fault of the GC, fault of the
Developer.
of the window manufacturer,
Oh.
that they agreed to those terms. When did I tell, Angelo Cairo is a very good friend of mine, and I tell Angelo all the time, why do you let someone else dictate your business model? I haven't done work with you before. I've put food on the table. This is my father speaking, but through me. I haven't done work for you before. I've put food on the table. I will continue to put food on the table without doing your work. Now, do you want to be partners? Partner means we both take an invested interest in it. And truth be told, I had to have those conversations with the bank because the bank wouldn't fund unless the product was on site. I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. You want price guarantee. You're not willing to help me fund and purchase the raw material. Well, we'll give you a letter of credit. I said, great, you're going to give me a letter of credit. I'm going to turn around to another bank and say, here, I got a letter of credit. How much are you going to lend me money on it? Oh, it's going to be 6%. Good, I come back to you. Right, no problem. I'll do your job for, instead of $1 million, it'll be $1,006,000. Where's the price guarantee, right? So we had those discussions with banks, and banks are probably the worst to deal with on that, truth be told. But you dictate your business because at the end of the day, it's your livelihood. And that's what manufacturers, general contractors need to understand, that no one else is going to worry about your money. You need to worry about your own money. So to your point, appendix, they're literally like crossed out. Like I don't even do red line. I use a marker and put an X to it.
But this is such a great wrap up of the conversation, in my view. When we talk about commercial, we're talking about a big liability footprint.
Huge.
So those that are not playing in this market yet, that are going to be getting into it, this conversation's critical. If you don't have that portion of it wrapped in your head, you're going to just get stomped on.
Oh, you'll get killed.
Yeah.
They'll just feel that they own you now.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only one that owns me,
Anyway.
is the bank. But whatever. John, I think John.
Did you say Tony Menicola had a question, or did you just happen to spot him at the back?
John Menicola.
Oh, John Menicola.
He's
Oh, yeah.
right there. John.
Question?
Sorry, I wasn't sure if
There.
Tony Menicola was here.
Yeah, no. That's why.
I was looking for him. I'm like, where is he?
I just wanted to comment on the points you guys just made. Throughout this whole seminar, I'm thinking, what is the difference between commercial and residential? Because I've touched on both, as Mike knows. You summed it up right there. The holdbacks, no deposit, progress payments, all that kind of stuff. That is the biggest hurdle between residential guys jumping to commercial side, and why you see a lot of the commercial guys doing a lot of these monster homes now. Because all of a sudden there's deposits. When the last nail is drawn, they get all their money. These are all to me, that's the biggest difference between commercial and residential.
Yeah.
How much risk? How much risk you take on as the contractor?
Well,
Exactly.
And these projects, these I guess commercial projects, if we want to call them, we'll just use that
Call it
multi-res.
part 3.
Part 3. Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. We'll do part 3. Excellent. I mean, the challenges that it's going to be, it's all going to be about time of getting to construction. So again, going back to permit application. Someone said last night, I think it was Terry, I think you mentioned it. You said in one part, it's like 2 years to get a permit to build the house?
Yeah.
Like 2 years. So now you're committed from a pricing perspective.
That's London. They're idiots.
No. It was in
Same
Vancouver.
there.
No,
It was in
Vancouver.
But listen,
London may
That's
be
a
worse.
thing.
listen. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's London, it's Vancouver, it's Toronto, it's City of East York, it's Thunder Bay, it's Ontario, it's Saskatoon. It's the same challenge everywhere.
Yeah.
So the dilemma that we're going to have is, what is going to be the cost to build, future cost to build? And you need to have a partnership. I think the GCs need to start partnering up with a strong, stable supplier in our business. There's a couple in Ontario that have been long-term high-rise window suppliers. You have some new ones that have been in the business for 4 to 10 years. They've had to make a huge capital investment to get equipment and automatic glazing. And then you've got the and I won't mention names, you got the ones that have been in business 20, 30 years. They might be replacing $1 million machine a year. The new company that came has bought like $40 million worth of equipment. and now business slows down. So to your point where the GC had the ability to squeeze people before, I think the GC needs to get smart now and choose the right partner and make sure that that partner is financially stable to complete their project. I think that's going to be a critical part.
They pay a lot of excellent lip service to that notion.
Yeah, and we
Guys, I hate to do this, but we're at time. We're at time, Mike. I know you're just getting warmed up. I know, man. We're right, Terry. We're pretty much at time. I don't want to. Does anyone in the audience had anything they wanted to throw in quickly before we? Okay, folks. I have been Pat Flannery from Fenestration Review and Glass Canada Magazine. This is Adrian Edge from Innotech. This is Mike Bruno from Everlast, and there is Brett Lucier from Provincial Glass. Thank you very much for coming out today.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.